What's up, y'all? This is Jason the Chiron here, and today we're talking about Saturn and all signs. Now, when we're discussing Saturn, we're talking about a planet, Saturn, which has the influence of structure and limitations. So basically, depending on the sign that the that Saturn is in, it's going to be applying structure and limitations in some way, shape, or form. Now, when I say applying structure and limitations, like basically the element and the modality that Saturn is in accordance to the sign, which consists of a modality and an element, one's going to do this in some way, shape, or form. Either it's going to have to do with Earth, structure, stability, and practicality. It's going to have to do with water, feelings, emotions, and intuition, or it's going to have to do with something that's more external, like fire, a point of view, or an expression. And the expression itself would be that point of view. Or we're talking about air, which is thinking, communicating, or processing information. Okay, so let's get into it. So if we're talking about Saturn in Aries, then we're talking about Saturn structure and limitations when it comes to cardinal fire. So we're talking about Saturn structure and limitations when it comes to cardinal initiating and creating fire, a point of view or expression, or a point of view through expression in some way, shape, or form. So let's see, let's paint the scenario. So let's say, matter of fact, we're going to use an old scenario. We're going to talk about, um, matter of fact, yeah, we're going to talk about cars. We're going to talk about, being at the car dealership again. We talked about this with what was it? I think it was Jupiter or Mars placement. I don't know. But today with Saturn, we're gonna talk about basically we're talking about being at the dealership. So you're at the dealership, you're picking out a car. Boom. Matter of fact, I don't know too much about cars. Let's not use cars. We're gonna talk about picking homes. All right, like a home, whether it's an apartment or whether it's a house. We'll get into those details depending on the placement. So if we have a Saturn in Aries, someone who applies structure and limitations when it comes to initiating a point of view or expression, then let's say we have the Saturn in Aries, and they're going to tend to this situation as, all right, so first and foremost, what I need a home. Period. Don't care what the home is, I need a home. Because if I have a home, then I have a place that I can conduct my business, a place that I can lay my head, a place that I can cook my food, a place where I could just be alone and get my mental space together, you know, just the basic needs, it's all about the basic needs. We're talking about initiating something in the first place or coming to the point of understanding that or initiating the point of the fact that we need a home. Okay, that's a viewpoint. That's something that's very basic. Everybody understands. That's why it's Aries, the first sign. This is the basic concepts, right? So this is a basic structure. With when we're dealing with the Aries energy, it's really oh so simple. And you're just learning from experiences as you go when you're dealing with the Aries energy, right? So and then when it comes to your structure, it's going to be based off the experiences you've been through, and you would have to expound upon those things. So this is also going to correlate with your Jupiterian energy. I would say more than most from my personal perspective of astrology and studying it. And also, if you just pay attention to life itself, if you don't have the wisdom to understand what'll play out as structure for you, then 9 times out of 10, you may just be going after a deeply embedded desire instead of what actually is required, right? So now, if we were to get into Saturn and Taurus, now this is going to play out quite differently. Of course, it'll be based off experiences, but let's say all these individuals have had similar experiences. But let's get into Saturn and Taurus. So Saturn, structure and limitations when it comes to fixed Earth. So Saturn, structure and limitations when it comes to fixed, the fixation on Earth, structure, stability, and practicality. All right. Now, I know when we're talking about Earth, you heard structure. When we talk about Saturn, you heard structure, right? The only difference between these things, plus you got to keep in mind that Saturn is a Earth and an air-based planet, so it's based on practicality. So when it comes to Earth, they're going to resonate with this energy a lot better than most other signs. And when it comes to air, it's also going to correlate. It might not have the same manifestations, especially since Earth, at the end of the day, Earth-based concepts are the manifestation itself. But when it comes to air, at least you know how to calculatively go about Saturn-based situations, right? Structure and limitations. Keep that in mind. So when it comes to Saturn and Taurus, now this is somebody who's going to be, you could say, a pro when it comes to like structure and what is a fixed structure, right? And in this time, I want you also to keep in mind that in the last video, in the Jupiter video, at the end of the video, I stated that actually when it comes to like placements, especially like Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, a lot of us are gonna have very similar energies. So they'll be like damn near in these same energies, if not the neighboring energy, the energy that's before or after your own placements when it comes to Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So a lot of people's um, ideals when it comes to structure and how to apply limitations to things to gain this structure, they're going to be very similar. So, don't be surprised. Like, for example, like if you're dealing with somebody who's like 10 years apart from you and it's a Saturn placement, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be that neighboring sign from yours. Say they're 20 years apart, then they're going to be 2 signs away from yours. And this will form a sextile. We're going to get into aspects as well, but that's going to be another video. But when it comes to it being 2 signs away, I'm going to give you all a little sneak peek. When it comes to aspects, you have to understand it's a sextile relationship, which means it is an easygoing relationship. So there will be some similarities in how this individual that is 20 years apart from this individual will see structure due to how slowly Saturn moves from sign to sign. It moves very slow. The sun, it moves from sign to sign every 30 days. It'll move to a new sign. The moon, it moves to a new sign every 2 1/3 days. When it comes to Mercury, real similar to the sun. When it comes to particulars, I don't want to sit here and try to tell you the specifics because I forgot. I would say maybe 35, 40 days until it switches to another sign. And then let's say we're dealing with Venus, that'll be, I think, 48 days. I don't know. I don't want to give you false information. We're going to get into that on a separate video, and it's going to be a lot shorter than these videos. But keep this in mind, okay? You're not going to find much difference between these people, and a lot of these placements, like you might as well just get it out of your mind that you're going to find like multiple of these types of individuals. Or if you meet them, they're in a whole different age group. There's going to be a huge age gap. So that's why when it comes to like your grandparents and your great grandparents and your parents, and then you where you at, there's going to be a difference, a slight difference in how y'all see things. Now, from how you see things, how your great grandparents see something, now it could be like a challenged type relationship. Reason being, they're probably like 40 years older than you, right? So they're going to see the world a lot more different, the things that actually matter when it comes to structure and limitations and stuff. Like, let's say, for example, if you're 25 like I am, and say you're dealing with a 65-year-old, then 9 times out of 10, like how my Saturn placement is 0 degrees Aries, which puts me on the cusp. I'm in between two different signs, by the way. Let's say my Saturn is in Aries. Somebody that's 40 years older than me, theirs, their Saturn placement will most likely be in either um Cancer or it'll be in Capricorn. Okay. So the way that I would see structure in accordance to like, structure and limitations, I'm going to say you'll only be limited by what you don't do because of my Saturn being in Aries. So it's all about initiating and creating a point of view or expression. So you must put yourself out there. We're talking about cardinal fire, cardinal initiating and creating fire, a point of view, which will, allow one to have perspective on the situation to apply that balance, that structure, to apply limitations to fun time and put in work right now instead, work hard now, play later type concept. This could be a Saturn and Aries type concept, which is why you hear this in this time period, right? So you'll see a lot of people apply themselves this way. Now, let's say you're dealing with like a Saturn in Cancer. Just to jump to these points, just to make sense of reality here, so we can see the similarities between individuals. Because I know a lot of these people that's watching this, you're trying to be able to eyeball somebody and figure out a placement, right? Okay, it's gonna take time. You're not gonna figure out somebody right off the rip. You got to know them for a while. But let's say they got Saturn in Cancer, and that means that this person is, yeah. If it's Saturn in Cancer, that means this person doesn't even exist yet, actually. Yeah, this person doesn't even exist yet. They'll be here in like 15 years in accordance to me because I'm 25. So when I'm 40, this person will just have been born. This person would have just been born. And then people who will be born 15 years from now, they're going to see structure as in you put your feelings out there and they will be tended to, and it would apply structure to your lifestyle and things of that nature, or put out your intuitions. They'll be a lot more spiritual than us. The same thing that we've been saying, we're going to become very spiritual. Spirituality is going to take a rise and things of that nature. Yeah, that's because of us and the influence that we're going to bring to this plane that we call Earth, right? And when it comes to Saturn and Capricorn, being the opposite energy from Saturn and Cancer, but also being a squared energy, meaning there's a 90-degree difference. The way that we calculate time, we would end up saying like there's a 40-year difference when we're talking about the Saturn placement. The Saturn and Capricorn people that, is basically like 65 now, they seen the world, they seen structural limitations being applied by basically like literally applying that structural limitation themselves, being the embodiment of that energy. And Saturn rules over Capricorn and Aquarius. So when we're talking about Capricorn, we're talking about the earth aspect of Saturn. So this is to initiate and create structure and limitations. So when it came to even fun would be something like, oh man, I wanted to have fun. I always wanted to be in the scene of things. So I became a DJ and I DJ at the parties, but realized this person DJs at the parties, they're getting paid at the same time. This is a Saturn and Capricorn type thing to do when you're coming from that perspective. Okay. Or say that somebody loves planes, so they become a pilot, they become a flight attendant, then they're going to tend to like getting a job on a plane as basically this is like I need to have fun with what I'm doing. And even that concept of do something you love, 9 times out of 10, a Saturn and Capricorn probably was the one who brought that to the table. If not, like a Saturn and Taurus. No, it wasn't a Saturn and Taurus because they don't, well, they exist, but they real young right now. They like they like 15 years old right now. But then say you're dealing with Saturn and Libra. Yeah, Saturn and Libra, they are like 55. So you could like say basically about 30 years ago that that most likely came into fruition from somebody who had a Saturn in Libra. And the reason why I say Libra, and I even brought up Taurus, is because both of them are ruled by Venus. And Venus is the planet of love, some say. So when it comes to the concept of do something you love, you could assume that somebody's Saturn placement had a sign that correlated with Venus or Capricorn when it comes to that scenario that I was talking about previously. Obviously, it's the planet of love when we're talking about Venus. Uh, Appreciation, value, valuables, possessions. So how you should go about your possessions is you gotta love them. And if you love them enough, you're gonna work every day to obtain that, or to at least keep that position that you have obtained already, right? Because that's what we do with the things that we value. And then also at the end of the day, you got to pay the bills. You know, we have a monetary system going on here. So these are type things to take into consideration when you're looking from the scope of Saturn. It's going to sound real similar to other things, but when you understand someone's intention, which, correlate, like brings you right back down to Mars. And also when you understand astrology, you understand that Mars carries out the duties and obligations of the sun. So whatever intentions that you have, which is your Mars, your body is going to do what it needs to do to get from point A to point B to make that drive and intent visible to manifest whatever you need in this physical reality. Your body and this physical reality both equate to the sun. Okay, this is how we understand our awareness, our personal point of view. Can anybody else live out your personal point of view? They'll try. They'll be considered admirers, but they won't have their own name in it. And if they do, it's always going to relate to you in some way, shape, or form. I dropped that knowledge on y'all real quick. Had to. This video is gonna be longer than the rest, you could already tell. Now, we're talking about Saturn and Taurus. So when you're dealing with Saturn, structural limitations with fixed Earth, Saturn, structural limitations with a fixation on Earth, structure, stability, and practicality. If we were to put this person in this scenario who has a fixation on who applies structure by being fixated on structure, stability, and practicality, then, like I said in my prior example, this is an individual who's going to basically just be so focused on structure. It might not be a playtime. They might just go ham, go ham, go ham just so they could build generational wealth. So basically, this will be a structure to stand on at all times. It's going to be about residual and passive income type scenarios, right? Because it's pay that you could depend on. It's monetary gain that you could depend on. It's that structure you could depend on. There's no cracks in the foundation. So now, if we were to put this into this situation where we're talking about getting a home, then let's say the Saturn and Taurus, they're going to go about maybe they'll want to rent to own a home because now they don't have money that's just consistently coming out of their pocket without a fixated goal in mind. They're renting this property to potentially own it later and have a say over it so that can't nobody come in and just flip the script and change everything around. Or the economy could come in and be like, oh, well, we need this and this and this when it comes to your home. Now, it's paid off. There's nothing you could do with my home. No banks own my home. I own my home. Saturn and Taurus. Now, if we're to talk about Saturn and Gemini, then we're talking about Saturn structure and limitations when it comes to mutable air. So we're talking about Saturn structure and limitations when it comes to mutable adaptability and relatability to air, thinking, communicating, and thinking, communicating, and processing information. So when you're dealing with an individual who applies structural limitations to a situation based off of adaptability and relatability to thinking, communicating, and processing, then this is someone who more so seeks structure through like networking in some way, shape, or form. And the reason why it's networking, let's look back at Saturn again. It has an air quality to it, which is Aquarius. Now, when we're talking about Mercury, Mercury is an air sign. So in this placement, it's going to have some Aquarian type ways, but at the end of the day, it's mutable. So it's going to be more adaptable. So let's say a Saturn and Mercury, most likely in this scenario that we're speaking of, they're going to talk to a realtor. This is who they're going to communicate with. This is their base of information that they're going to gain information from to process the best way to go about this situation. The most realistic approach, right? They're going to be looking for that. They're not just sticking with their own approach like a Saturn and Taurus. They're going to, and 9 times out of 10, the realtor that they talk to is going to be a Saturn and Taurus. Once they start relating their communications with multiple different individuals, they come to find out that this is most likely the best person to be talking to, according to prior knowledge, because this is all we've talked about in this video. So, you know, stay up with me. So yeah, this Saturn and Gemini is going to discuss what's the most realistic approach when it comes to getting a home. And most likely that Saturn and Taurus is going to tell you, yeah, you need to rent to own, and let's say the Saturn and Taurus is the realtor. Let's say they already were a realtor and they probably getting discounts on their stuff because they're Saturn and Taurus. So they got discounts on their rent to own property, or they were able to pay it off a lot faster, or they did what they needed to do or whatever. And then they're going to relay that information to the Saturn and Gemini, who's going to approach them with the conversation for the sake of applying structure and limitation to their situation. Now, if we're talking about Saturn in Cancer, we're talking about Saturn structure and limitations or applying structure and limitations to cardinal water. So Saturn applying structure and limitations to cardinal initiation and creation of water, feelings, emotions, and intuition. So now Saturn in Cancer, let's say if they get a home, it's going to be based off if it's near the water where they can have a beautiful view. They can kind of feel that mist hit them when they go stand on their balcony of their home. They're going to be able to meditate. They ain't got too many loud noises going off, gunshots going on outside, because it's all about tending to the feelings and it's going to initiate and create a way for them to feel or resonate with their environment or resonate with just even themselves, for them to have that structure. And let's say they work from home, right? You don't want to be somewhere where it's too rowdy, because you talking to a customer and you're like, hey, how are you doing today? And then somebody barging your home and you're like, oh, wait a minute, get the Glock, baby. And then now y'all got a whole bunch of crazy stuff going on. You're going to lose your job at some point in time, unless you got a cool manager or whatever. And they might have even been like, let me find a company where I have a manager who's going to allow me to tend to my home or my domestic issues accordingly and be more understanding, probably slide some things under the rug so I ain't got to deal with all the extra pressure, because then that won't be comfortable, which correlates with the energy of Cancer. So at the end of the day, they won't be able to conduct their business, which is, you know, you could say this is a lot like a Saturn type scenario. Now, when we're talking about Saturn and Leo, we're talking about Saturn structure and limitations when it comes to fixed fire. So, Saturn structure and limitations when it comes to fixed, which is a fixation on fire, which is a point of view or a way of expressing something, right? So if we're dealing with a Saturn and Leo individual, we have somebody who applies structural limitations to their situations based off the fixation on their point of view or an expression that somebody else gave to them that they've become aware of was the fact that it's just the best way to go about it, or maybe it's just best for them in their customized situation, even because it's fire. So it has to do with the yin realm. It's a yin internal element. It has to do with something that they want to do. They can put it out this way or that way or whatever. Now let's say that this Saturn and Leo individual, uh let's say they're a street salesman, they're street pharmacists, right? They gonna move to the hood. Why? Because first and foremost, and let's make this in accordance to the times, because this is the age of Aquarius. So it's going to help you out more if I act in accordance to our economic status and things of that nature, or political status and things like that. So just to apply more structure to the situation. By the way, my Saturn is 0 degrees Aries, so I'm looking at the possibilities, and I'm also like, okay, it's gonna be based off my experiences too. And you notice I'm able to flow through this and talk more about it. That's that Aries energy. You're able to just jump into it. So back to Saturn and Leo though. Okay, let's say that the Saturn and Leo is a street pharmacist. For y'all who don't know what that is, go ask your parents. Now, if you're Saturn and Leo, then you have to understand that if you're gonna move somewhere, you're gonna move to the hood. Why? Because they more likely to, communicate with you, network with you, and be like, hey, what a green at? Yeah, I'm the street pharmacist. That's why I moved over here. I just moved in, bro. I got that pack. Oh, bet. Right. And then they're gonna be like, okay, yeah, this the best place to be. Now, if a street pharmacist move to the suburbs, you might have an undercover cop, or you might have cops that can see you conducting your business, just to say it in best terms. Now, let's say that this Saturn and Leo is a salesman, right? Maybe they'll move to, say, if you're in Houston, they might move to Midtown because there's a whole bunch of different scenic areas in Midtown. So if you're in a scenic area, a lot of people are going there, even visitors are going there, things of that nature, and you're a salesman, then you're gonna end up being like, oh, okay, yeah, I got a lot of clientele, a lot of potential clientele, and that's gonna apply structure to my personal situation, right? And that's going to be their personal point of view. So there might be better things out there, but according to their personal point of view, they're like, I'm a salesman. Every time I went to a scenic area, it was hard for me not to make a sale. So I'm going to move there. All right. So now let's say we got Saturn and Virgo. So we got Saturn structural limitations when it comes to mutable Earth. So we have Saturn structure limitations when it comes to mutable adaptability and relatability to Earth structure stability and practicality. Where we're building, a format of communication here. You know, say let's say if somebody doesn't know their placement, if you say it to them in a certain type of way, or you speak to them about how they apply structure, you're talking about Saturn. You're talking about how they go about expanding on information to gain wisdom. We're talking about Jupiter, and etc. So back to it. Just keep that in mind. It's gonna help you really sound like an expert when it comes to talking about astrology. So now, if we're talking about Saturn in Virgo, we're talking about Saturn, which is structure limitations when it comes to mutable adaptability and relatability to Earth, structure, stability, and practicality. So, when you have somebody who applies structure in a way, like the way that they apply structure is by adapting and relating to their structure, stability, and practicality, or like you could even say like their surroundings, especially with this placement. Remember, Virgo is an earth sign, so that structure's there. They're going to be more adaptable, and they might be the ones when it comes to this scenario of picking a home, they might pick an apartment, right? Let's say they start off, they pick an apartment just so they could be like, yeah, I'm gonna give me a 6-month lease. it's more costly than getting a 12-month lease, but at least I get to properly scout out my area. They may be from out of state and they just move somewhere else for business or whatever. Now they pick in a place and they're like, okay, I really need to understand what these places about. I don't have anybody I could talk to around here that I could really trust their judgment. I don't know if they're my type of person. So I'm gonna pick this apartment right now, sit here for like 6 months. If I like it, I'll go ahead and give me a 12-month lease. Excuse me. Or I'm gonna go ahead and go get me a house in this area. Let's say they at first they probably seen a house that they liked and it was like, okay, hold on. That example, I'm gonna leave that for Saturn and Capricorn. But let's say they move somewhere, they like, I'm gonna be here for 6 months just in case I need to move around. I need to adapt or I need to uh transfer myself to a different environment. I found there's too many gunshots over there. I found out like say they a street pharmacist and people really smoking THC based products. They smoking CBD based products and the government they sell that for too cheap. It's already sold off too cheap in the marketplace, in your general marketplace and things of that nature. So they're gonna adapt to that structure, stability. It's that structure, that form of stability. They're gonna be more practical about their situation. This Saturn placement is your placement. Okay. So you're going to move somewhere else. Now, I'm not saying everybody's Saturn is a Virgo. Okay. This person doesn't even exist right now. All right. So, let's just make that very clear. When I say your placement, I'm talking about the Saturn placement in general. Like a lot of people are going to relate to it, but at the same time, you have a different degree, minute, and second. So yours is going to play out a lot different, especially the frequency that you chime into, your intent, right? But we'll get into degrees. That's another video. So now, if we're talking about Saturn in Libra, let's say, okay, well, first off, Saturn in Libra. So we're talking about Saturn, structure and limitations on cardinal air. So when it comes to Saturn, structure limitations, when it comes to cardinal, initiating and creating, air, thinking, communicating, and processing, then we're basically talking about somebody who applies structure by initiating and creating, um, thinking, communicating, and processing. Now, let's say that this individual who has Saturn in Libra is is a person who sells homes. This is a real estate agent, right? Now, by them communicating, relaying information to you about this property or that property or that property, which 9 times out of 10, they might make you like they might show you the more pricey uh, areas first. That's going to apply structure to their life. What they've initiated in communication is going to apply structure to their lives by the by the money that they gain from making this sale. 9 times out of 10, they're going to be a salesman because they initiate and create communication and thought processing and things of that nature, right? So they're going to make more money. They're going to make money off the deal. Now, also, let's say they go and they sell you a cheaper price place. Like, let's say they listen to you, they listen to how you initiated communication with them, and they come to realize, oh, okay, this person's looking for something cheaper, or this person's trying to build their business. They're in the process of building their business right now. It will benefit them more and apply more structure to their situation by showing you cheaper places. Because 9 times out of 10, let's say like you're the Saturn and Virgo individual, and you're just trying to be here for 6 months. And the Saturn and Virgo individual explains to the Saturn and Libra individual, I'm just trying to be here for 6 months so that I can figure out what this area is like so that I can, move into something that's better. Now, what this does for Saturn and Libra in this situation potentially is they go find you a spot that you can stay at for 6 months that could be a good spokesman in a way for the area that you're in. Because like I said, Saturn and Virgo don't know nobody. Most likely don't trust the Saturn and Libra yet either. So if the Saturn and Libra leads them to get into a 6-month lease, with an apartment that they've actually settled a whole bunch of people into and they've always got great reviews on it. They put that person there and then they go out and like that Saturn and Libra goes out and finds a house in the area that matches the criteria of what the Saturn and Virgo's looking for, then that's another sale. That's another sale right there. Okay. So the real estate agent isn't getting paid once no more, they're getting paid twice. And it's probably going to be more than what they would have did just selling a home to one individual or just showing one individual an apartment. You feel me? So they apply structure to their situation by initiating communication and initiating a way of processing information or what they're helping somebody process information about. Now, if we're talking about Saturn and Scorpio, we're talking about Saturn structure and limitations when it comes to fixed water. So we're talking about Saturn structure and limitations when it comes to fixed, a fixation on water, feelings, emotions, and intuition. Now, let's say there's another salesman, there's another real estate salesman, and they've witnessed how the Saturn and Libra got some great sales, right? Let's say they backdoor and they go talk to the Saturn and Virgo on the low, and they're like, "Hey, look, you gotta understand that dude. He's just all about the money. Me, I overheard you say that you actually love boating. You like fishing, right? I can find you a place by the water. That's gonna tend to what you personally feel for." A personal feel, personal fix, feel water. You have a personal feel for this area better than that area, right? And you're trying to build a business and it's still around the same price range. So basically, this Saturn and Scorpio is fixated on how that individual will feel. Now, also, this goes without having to say that this Saturn and Scorpio is fixated on how they will feel about applying structure to their personal situation. Now, this doesn't always mean that it's a cutthroat individual. It's just in this scenario, we talking about real estate. It just so happen to be a cutthroat game sometimes. But I'm not trying to put Saturn and Scorpios like in that box because Scorpios got a bad rep already. But at the same time, just understand, I'm not giving them a bad rep. If you want to understand more about these placements, you're going to have to keep on watching. And also, you should get your birth natal chart interpretation. I'm doing my best not to give y'all too much, but to give you enough to where you can actually break down these situations, or at least break them down for yourself and make your own interpretations. Like, for example, like your preacher should be like teaching you how to cipher through your Bible, like break it down and decipher it for yourself, for your own personal journey. Because everybody's not going to be sitting in front of a whole bunch of people and have the potential to get a Bugatti and possibly choose to instead invest all this money into the church. We need to have better preachers. So we can't have everybody up there speaking who would rather go get a Bugatti than influence you to become a preacher yourself and then invest your money in the charities or create charities yourself. We need an abundance of people. If we're all doing the same thing, it's not going to help us out. So make sure you're making your own interpretations. Practice. Get your birth natal chart reading as well so that you can practice in your nature. Okay. Now, if we're talking about Saturn in Sagittarius, we're talking about Saturn structure and limitations when it comes to mutable fire. So we're talking about Saturn structure and limitations when it comes to mutable adaptability and relatability to fire, a point of view or expression, or a point of view through expression, expressing that point of view, even. But when we're talking about Saturn in Sagittarius in general, we're talking about applying structure to a situation, applying structure and limitations to a situation by like with a broader perspective, by applying a broader perspective or having a perspective that has the capability of being broadened, like broadening your horizon, you know? So, or opening someone up to a broader horizon, letting them see uh, more ways of being versatile about how they see a situation, right? Now, let's say that this Saturn in Sagittarius is somebody who aspires to be a real estate agent in this scenario. They aspire to be a real estate agent. Now, let's say they just seen that a Saturn in Libra and a Saturn in Scorpio are going for the same individual. Now, a Saturn in Sagittarius may be open-minded enough to look at this scenario and see it from a perspective that hasn't even been communicated with them because they are the fire. They are utilizing the fire element with their Saturn placement. So when it comes to structural limitations, they may tell themselves on one end in opposition to real estate that, man, the game has become so cluttered that these two real estate agents are going for the same person when there's so many people in the world. I'm guessing so many people have already tapped in to this game to the point that we have to overlap and go after the same person. Man, maybe I need to put this down and find another career path. Or the Saturn and Sagittarius person might be like, well, these people, they walking door to door or whatever, or they trying to come directly to people. If I was to make a posting on the internet for real estate and get into digital real estate marketing, y'all should look into that. It's great. It's great. I'm gonna get into it myself. I just need some more chips, y'all. But they might get into digital real estate marketing because they'll be open to the horizon of other opportunities and another way of seeing the market. But depending on the other placements, it's going to affect this Saturn and Sagittarius individual. And the same goes for Saturn and all other signs as well. But your versatility depends on how many mutable signs you have, what degree this mutable sign is in specific planetary placements, and other matters of that situation. Now, when it comes to fixation, it's about how many fixed signs you have in these placements and things of that nature. But this sounds like I'm getting into qualities, modes, and modalities right now. And I ain't made a video for that yet. So let me shut up. So we're talking about, Saturn and Sagittarius. They're going to be more versatile when it comes to perspective, when it comes to applying structure to their situations. Okay. Now we're talking about Saturn and Capricorn, which is a home placement for Saturn. Not the only one, because we're going to get into Aquarius as well right after this one. Now, when we're talking about Saturn and Capricorn, we're talking about Saturn, structure and limitations when it comes to cardinal Earth. So we're talking about Saturn, structure and limitations when it comes to cardinal, initiating and creating Earth, structure, stability, and practicality. Okay. Now, let's say that the Saturn in Capricorn is a friend to the Saturn in Sagittarius. Let's say they're friends with them. So this Saturn in Capricorn, to hear the point that this Saturn in Sagittarius just made that we just talked about. And they'll be like, you know what? I bet there's other people who possibly, thought what you thought. How can I beat everybody to the market? This is what I could do. I could get into I could just go straight into I could get straight into just building homes myself. Matter of fact, I like architecture. I like getting into that type of stuff. So how about I go build these homes myself? Ironically, we're talking about cardinal Earth, so initiating, creating structure, stability, and practicality. So they might be more into just building it themselves anyway. They would have that type of energy to go and just like not saying they would have like the stamina, but they would have that Saturn-like energy, especially by having Saturn in Capricorn, because Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, as I stated previously. So they might be the ones to be like, you know what, I'm gonna beat the whole market. There ain't never a day the construction ain't happening. They ain't trying to go build or rebuild something. So I'm gonna apply structure to my situation like that. I'm gonna become a construction worker. Matter of fact, I might become ooh, that's gonna be for the next one. I'm gonna become a construction worker. That's Saturn and Capricorn right there. For example, applying structural limitations through cardinal initiation and creation of Earth, structure, stability, and practicality. That's Saturn and Capricorn. Now let's get into Saturn and Aquarius. So we're talking about Saturn structure and limitations when it comes to fixed air. So we're talking about Saturn structure and limitations when it comes to the fixation on air, thinking, communicating, and processing information. So if we're talking about somebody who's going to apply structure and limitations to whatever they're doing by being fixated on thinking, communicating, and processing, let's say that this person was like, you know what? Like they're a friend to the Saturn and Sagittarius and Capricorn. They're the Saturn and Aquarius. They're like, you know what? I'm more into networking. I'm going to become a contractor. And plus, I'm not trying to work. I'm not trying to be into all that earthly stuff. I'm not trying to get my hands dirty. I'm just going to network. I'm a socializer with people. While you going out there and like Sagittarius, they going out, they putting postings on the internet or whatever. I'm going to be the contractor who's going to direct them to those listings. And they're going to pay me some money. Or at least I'm going to pay for the I'm gonna pay for the what's it called? Basically, they're gonna pay for the contract. Good, send a name. They're gonna pay for the contract so that they have rights to that contract of that property, and they're gonna go sell it to. They're gonna network and sell it to the person that's looking for a home for about $5,000, right? They were to put money in their pocket. All they had to do was talk. All they had to do was network. When we're talking about the Aquarius energy, we're talking about networking. We're talking about like socializing. We're talking about humanitarianism. So like human and human, like basically, what's your situation? All right, this is my situation. Let's see how we could work together. Networking, right? When we're dealing with Saturn and Aquarius, they're going to gain their structure in that way. Okay. So now, if we're talking about Saturn and Pisces, last but not least, we're talking about Saturn structure and limitations when it comes to mutable water. So we're talking about Saturn structure and limitations when it comes to mutable adaptability and relatability to water, feelings, emotions, and intuition. Now, let's say we have this Saturn in Pisces, right? Who is, let's say this is the mother in this scenario of one of the kids. Let's say this is the mother to the Saturn and Sagittarius, right? And she's the one who even put him on game for him to put his friends on game and things of that nature. Now, let's say that this Saturn in Pisces, they're great at honing in to people's feelings, emotions, and intuition because of the mutable modality that goes along with the water of Pisces in their Saturn placement. So they're going to apply structure by being relatable and adapting to the emotional needs of these individuals, right? So let's say they'll be the one who they'll sit inside a real estate office and people will come in and they'll say they're looking for something, and then this person will sit there and take the time to tend to their domestic needs. Domestic. Now, when it comes to the domestication, you could think of the moon. Remember that the moon is a solely water-based planet. So when it comes to water, there's going to be domestication of the soul in some way, shape, or form. So the feelings, the emotions, the intuition. So a Saturn in Pisces could actually make a living in this situation by just sitting there and listening to what somebody desires in a home. They're going to paint a picture for them. They're going to utilize fire, right, in that situation by being able to gain a perspective on the situation. But what they're really trying to do is make this person feel comfortable in whatever they decide. So if you go to this individual, say that the Saturn in Virgo, who is sitting here trying to fit like, you know what, I'm just gonna be here for 6 months. I don't know nobody. Let me just I'm gonna get it how I live. This is where I'm at right now. This is how I'm gonna tend to it. It's the most practical way. Now, this Saturn in Virgo may go to this office. Let's say that the Saturn in Virgo goes to the office where the Saturn in Pisces is from what the Saturn in Libra told them, because they're the ones relaying information. So the Saturn in Virgo goes to the office where the Saturn in Pisces is, and what the Saturn in Pisces does is sits there and hones in on what this Saturn in Virgo really desires and what this Saturn in Virgo may really want, what will really make this Saturn in Virgo comfortable. This is what the Saturn in Pisces can do. And instead of having them move all over the place, which will pull them away from comfortability and move them away from where they can really domesticate themselves in a situation or in a home, which it should be, you should be able to domesticate yourself in a home, right? They'll be able to really hone in on what's up with this individual. And also they might be like, oh, so you do paintings? You sell paintings? Okay, so you sell paintings. I'm gonna go put you around this real festive area where a whole bunch of people do paintings, and a lot of people appreciate that type of stuff, right? And you say you do abstract paintings. Okay, we were looking for somebody who had a more fictional outlook on how to go about their paintings, about their art. So if I put you right over here, and I put you, you're right next to this person who loves uh painting like actual like things that have to do with reality. They're real reality based painters or whatever, or they're a reality based artist, then that could really, y'all could really come together and create something beautiful. And then y'all create even more of a vibe that I'm trying to create for that area by putting all of you people who fit that vibe together. Not only that, there's a music artist that lives right next to him, and I put them together just so that they could do artwork for that person's mixtape that's coming out or for that person's album that's coming out. So when it comes to Pisces energy, this is mutable water. So this is relatability and adaptability to feelings, emotions, and intuition. Intuition is like an inner vision. So it's like they'll and like the inner vision that doesn't really just come out through a direct expression. It might take people some time to actually sit there and be like, you know what, we really got something here. Or, oh, I finally get it. I feel where you're coming from. So that would be just a perfect thing for Saturn and Pisces to get into. Matter of fact, if any Saturn and Pisces get into this based off of the information I just spread today, yo, help me get on. Like, remember me. I'll have my email in the description below this video. So hit me up and we can network together. Go get your Saturn and Aquarius friend and we could do this. But y'all, that was a Saturn in all signs. If you have any comments, you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Okay. I'm open to all criticisms. It's whatever. I believe I did great, but at the same time, everybody has different perspectives, and I'm down to hear them because I know better because I actually know astrology. So much love to y'all. Peace.